Part 1. I wasn't supposed to feel this way. They say some places break you on purpose. But what if the place that tried to bury you accidentally unearthed who you really were? My name is Elijah Monroe. I'm 17, and I just got dropped off at a place that promises to fix kids like me. The sign outside says, Camp Rebirth, a path to purity. The words are carved into a weather-warped board, chipped at the corners, like it's been lying for a long time. My dad didn't speak the entire 5-hour drive. Not when we left, not when I asked where we were going, and not when we pulled into the gravel lot of the camp that smelled like pine needles and regret. He parked, turned off the engine, got out, grabbed my bag, handed it to a man in khakis with a clipboard and a smug, polished smile. "Don't embarrass us," he muttered under his breath, then got back in the truck and drove away, without a look, without a word, like dropping off trash. The man's name was Caleb, Director Caleb, according to the tag pinned to his chest. "Welcome to Camp Rebirth, Elijah," he said, smiling like a dentist about to drill. "We're going to help you find your way back." I didn't reply, mostly because I didn't know what to say, but also because something about the way he said back made my skin crawl. Back to what? To who? I hadn't even figured out who I was yet. He led me down a gravel path, past cabins that looked like they hadn't been touched since the 90s. Faded paint, peeling numbers, porches with missing boards. "Cabin 6, he said, unlocking the door. "This will be home for the next 6 weeks." Home, right? Inside were 3 bunks, 2 already claimed, 1 empty at the back by the window. One of the boys didn't even look up, just kept reading his Bible like it owed him something. But the other, he did look right at me, and in that single glance, something in me stuttered. He was tall, tan, dark hair that curled slightly at the edges like he'd just run a hand through it. His eyes were unreadable, but they didn't look through me. They landed, stayed, like he saw me, actually saw me, and not the version they were trying to erase. I dropped my bag on the mattress. The springs cried out under the weight, and I sat down slow stiff, like a prisoner getting comfortable in his new cell. He smirked, didn't say anything, until I looked up. Then, "You get sent here for kissing a boy too?" I blinked, wasn't ready for honesty. Not in this place. Not on day 1. "Yeah," I said quietly. He nodded once, like that was enough, like that was a full story. And maybe it was. Dinner was at 6. A bell rang through the trees like we were in some military movie. We sat on benches at long tables. No talking, just whispers and fake smiles from counselors watching too closely. Micah, that was his name, sat across from me. He flicked his fork against a metal tray, bored, then mouthed, "Don't drink the juice." I didn't. He grinned. Everywhere I looked, there were reminders: purity, redemption, discipline, order. The slogans were slapped on walls, stitched into the counselors' shirts, etched into the bathroom mirror. I started to think they were trying to brainwash us through repetition. But Micah, he didn't look brainwashed. He looked detached, like he was playing along, but didn't believe a word of it. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the wooden ceiling. Too many thoughts, too much noise inside, and the room was too quiet. Then a whisper from the top bunk, "You scared?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. He climbed down, sat on the edge of my bed. Moonlight cut across his face in stripes. He looked down at me, not like a threat, not like a predator, but like someone who knew what it felt like to be unwanted, unfixable. "I come here every summer," he said. "Not because I need to, but because my parents do." "What do you mean?" I whispered. He sighed. "My dad's a pastor. This place keeps up appearances. Gives him a chance to preach about how far I've come." He smirked bitterly. I haven't gone anywhere. I wanted to say something, but my throat caught, so I just looked at him. And he looked back. Not a word between us. Just silence. Thick, heavy, familiar. Then he reached for my hand, just briefly, barely a touch. but enough to set off a storm inside me. And then he whispered, "They can't change us, Elijah. They can scare us, shame us, silence us, but they can't undo what we are." I stared at him, heart pounding, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. I felt seen, real, human, maybe even wanted. He stood, climbed back to the top bunk, laid down, said nothing else, and I lay there, eyes open, thinking about the way his fingers felt against mine. Like heat, like hope, like danger. That was the first night, the first crack in the wall I'd built around myself. The first moment I realized this wasn't just survival. Something was happening here. Something real and terrifying and impossible to ignore. To be continued in part 2. If you ever felt trapped between who you are and who you're told to be, this story is for you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because trust me, what happens next will change everything. Part 2. He said my name like it meant something. They say the first night is the hardest, but no one talks about the morning after. The silence, the confusion, the echo of something you didn't ask for, but can't stop thinking about. I woke up with Micah's voice still in my head. They can't change us, Elijah. Like it was a truth I hadn't dared say out loud. His bunk was empty, sheets still messy, like he left in a rush, or maybe never slept at all. I sat up slowly, heart tight in my chest, trying not to make too much of it, but I already had, because when someone touches you like that, even for a second, you don't forget, especially not in a place built on forgetting. I got dressed in silence, shoved on the same uniform shirt and cargo shorts, tied my boots with shaking hands, and stepped outside into the heavy morning air. Everything looked the same. The dirt paths, the stiff trees, the fog clinging to the ground like regret. But I wasn't the same. I was looking for someone who'd made me feel human again. I saw him at morning chapel, sitting near the back, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He didn't look at me, not once, but I looked at him. Too much. I kept waiting for a sign, a glance, a smile, something. But all I got was cold sermons and colder rules, and the quiet ache of knowing I hadn't dreamed it, because it still burned. That moment, that touch, his voice in the dark like it belonged in me. After chapel, we went straight into a reflection period, which meant sitting in a circle and being asked to confess things we never should have been ashamed of. I sat across from Micah, but he didn't speak, didn't move, didn't even blink when the counselor asked him if he had anything to share. "Nope," he said flatly, then leaned back in his chair like the world bored him. The counselor frowned, but let it go. For now, when it was my turn, I hesitated, then said the first thing that came out. "I miss being seen." Silence. Someone coughed. The counselor nodded like I'd said something deep, but I didn't say it for him. I said it because last night, Micah saw me, and it scared the hell out of me. After session, we were sent off in pairs for accountability walks. You weren't allowed to choose your partner. They did it for you. But that day, someone, fate, or maybe something worse, paired me with Micah. We walked a dirt trail behind the chapel, supposed to reflect, supposed to stay within earshot of the path. We didn't talk for 5 minutes, just walked. And then, "You think I regret last night?" he asked quietly. I looked at him, startled and kind of breathless. "I don't know," I said. "I don't even know what it was." He stopped walking, turned toward me. It was real. I swallowed, hard. His voice was steady, but his eyes, they searched mine like they needed to find something buried. I stepped closer, carefully, not even sure why, but I wanted to. "So, why didn't you look at me this morning?" He exhaled, like the question hit something, because I knew if I did, I'd want to do it again. My pulse roared in my ears, and for a second, the world stopped spinning. "You can't say things like that," I whispered. "Not here." He nodded slowly. "I know, but that doesn't mean I don't feel them." We stood there, too close, too still, And then, Elijah, he said softly. I swear, no one had ever said my name like that before. Like it mattered. Like I mattered. Like I wasn't broken. I blinked hard, felt heat behind my eyes. I don't know what to do, I admitted. He looked down, then back at me. Neither do I. But I know I don't want to lie to myself anymore. A twig cracked nearby, voices in the distance. We stepped apart instantly, like nothing happened, like we were just two campers out for a walk. But everything had happened, and we both knew it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every word, every look, every impossible second where the truth got louder than the shame. And for the first time since I arrived, I didn't want to run. I wanted to fight, not the camp, not the rules, but the part of me that still believed I didn't deserve to be loved. Because maybe Micah wasn't just a crush. Maybe he was proof that I wasn't alone, that someone else understood. And maybe that was more dangerous than anything this camp could ever teach. To be continued in part 3. Part 3. I didn't mean to touch him, but I did. Some touches are mistakes. Some are accidents. But some live under your skin long after they're gone. I didn't plan to touch him. Not in that moment. Not in this place. But the body doesn't always ask permission. And neither does the heart. It happened during recreation hour. They called it team building. But it was really just a way to tire us out. Keep us distracted. Keep us obedient. We were split into 2 groups and sent to the dusty volleyball court. Micah ended up on my team. Not by choice. Just luck. Or maybe something else. He didn't speak to me at first. Just stood off to the side, arms crossed, eyes scanning the tree line like he'd rather be anywhere else. I tried not to look at him, but I couldn't help it. The way the sun hit his face, the curve of his jaw, the tiny scar above his eyebrow. I noticed everything. I hated that I noticed, and wanted to keep noticing anyway. Ready? One of the counselors shouted. The game started. I was terrible at it. Every ball came at me like a threat. Micah didn't say anything, just moved in whenever I froze. Covered for me, over and over. At one point, he dove forward and landed hard, dirt clouding around him as he bumped the ball back into play. He stood up, wiped sweat from his brow, and glanced my way. I caught that glance, held it a second too long, and then it happened. A fast spike came over the net. I flinched. Instinct took over. Micah reached for it, and so did I. Our hands collided, not just a brush, a collision. Heat shot up my arm, like my nerves couldn't tell the difference between danger and desire. We both missed the ball. It hit the ground. The counselor blew his whistle. Eyes up, Monroe, he barked. I nodded, barely hearing him, because Micah was still looking at me. Not angry, not embarrassed, just watching, like the touch meant something, because it did, and we both knew it. Later, during dinner, I avoided his table, sat near the end, between 2 boys who talked too much about scripture and not enough about survival. I kept my head down, ate slowly, but I could feel Micah's eyes on me, burning, waiting, saying everything we weren't allowed to say. After dinner, we had evening devotions in Cabin 4, a mandatory reflection led by one of the older counselors. We sat in a circle with Bibles in our laps, pretending to listen. Micah was across from me again. His ankle brushed mine under the circle. Once, twice. I didn't move. I didn't want to. That night in our cabin, lights out didn't mean silence. Not anymore. He waited until the others were asleep, until the only sound was a buzz of summer insects outside the window. Then he whispered, Elijah, the way he said it, soft, careful, like my name was a secret. I turned toward the edge of my bed, heart thudding. Yeah, I felt it too. I didn't pretend not to know what he meant. There was no point. I know, I whispered. There was a pause, a long one. Then, I think about it more than I should, he said. I think about you more than I should. Every part of me went still. I don't want to get in trouble. I whispered, I don't want you to either. He exhaled slowly. The trouble already happened. We're just living in it. That line hit me so hard it left a mark. I stared at the dark ceiling, at the shape of him barely outlined in the moonlight above me. "Come down," I whispered. I didn't plan to say it. It just came out. He didn't ask why, didn't hesitate. He climbed down, silently, carefully, sat beside me, so close I could feel the heat coming off his skin. Neither of us moved. We just sat there, breathing the same air, heartbeats filling the space between us like thunder. Then my hand moved, just barely, just enough to brush his, and he didn't pull away. He turned his hand and wrapped his fingers through mine. My pulse exploded, my chest tightened, and that one touch said more than anything either of us could ever confess in group therapy. I looked at him. He looked at me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a problem to be solved. I felt safe, wanted, whole, even if it was just for that moment. Even if the world would break us the second it found out. Right then, it was just us, Micah and me, two boys pretending not to be afraid, while holding hands in the dark, inside a place built to erase us, to be continued in Part 4. Part 4. We couldn't stop, even if we tried. Some lines aren't crossed by accident. Some are stepped over, slowly, deliberately, like your whole body knows. This will ruin you, and you do it anyway. That night should have ended when our hands touched, when our fingers laced together under the darkness of Cabin 6. But it didn't, because something deeper was already moving, quiet, unstoppable, like a wave pulling us out before we even knew we were swimming. Micah didn't let go. Neither did I. We just sat there, hand in hand, while the other boys snored, while the world outside our walls kept pretending we were broken. I turned to look at him. He was already watching me. No smile, no smirk, just eyes that said, "I feel it too." "Elijah," he whispered again, softer this time, almost like a prayer. My heart thudded, hard, loud, wrecking my chest from the inside. "Yeah." He leaned closer, so close I could feel the heat from his breath. "I don't care anymore." I swallowed. Every part of me was shaking. "We'll get caught. I know. They'll separate us. I know. But you still..." He kissed me. There was no warning, no lead-in, just yes. It wasn't slow. It wasn't careful. It was desperate, like we'd waited too long, like we were starving. My fingers clutched the front of his shirt. His hands cupped my face. And every terrible thing they told me about love, every rule, every warning, every Bible verse they shoved down my throat, burned away in that kiss. This wasn't sin. This was oxygen. We pulled back, just barely, just enough to breathe. Micah was panting, eyes wide. "I didn't mean to," he started. "You did," I said, "and so did I." He let out a broken laugh, buried his face in my shoulder. "God, we're idiots," he whispered. I smiled. "Yeah, but I'd do it again." I didn't answer. I didn't have to, because my hand was still in his, and we both knew what that meant. We fell asleep like that, sitting up, shoulder to shoulder, his head tilted back against the wall, mine tilted toward him. I don't know how long we slept, but I know what woke me. The door creaked, then a flashlight, harsh, bright, sweeping the room like a blade. "Lights on!" A counselor's voice, sharp, authoritative. We both jolted, let go instantly. Too late. The counselor's eyes landed on us, saw the space, the closeness, our red, guilty faces. He didn't say anything, just squinted, paused, then turned and walked out. But we both knew. He saw. That morning, Micah didn't speak to me. At breakfast, he sat 2 tables away. At chapel, he kept his head down. During group therapy, he didn't make a single sarcastic comment. I was losing him already, and I didn't know what to do. After lunch, they called me into the director's office. My stomach dropped. My legs went numb. The walk felt like a funeral. Caleb sat behind a big wooden desk, his Bible open, smile fake, Elijah, he said, his voice calm, deadly. We receive a report that you've been struggling. I stared at him, said nothing. He folded his hands. You're not in trouble. Not yet, but we take purity violations very seriously here, especially when they involve others. I wanted to scream, to run, to say, you have no idea what you're talking about. But I just sat there, frozen. Do you feel tempted by anyone here? He asked. I shook my head. No. Lie. Has anyone encouraged those feelings? No. Lie. He nodded slowly, like he could smell it. The fear. The guilt. We'll keep a close eye, he said, for your safety. I left the office with sweat on my back and bile in my throat. They knew, or at least they suspected. That night, Micah avoided the cabin until lights out. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting, heartbreaking. He climbed to his bunk without a word. I almost didn't say anything, but I couldn't stand the silence. You're not going to talk to me? No answer. They already know, Micah. Still nothing. They're going to separate us anyway. So why are you pushing me away? He exhaled, a slow, shaking breath. Then, because if I keep talking to you, Elijah, his voice cracked. I won't stop. I felt tears build behind my eyes. Then don't. Silence. Please, I whispered. Don't stop. He didn't move, but his voice came back, soft and broken. I want to kiss you again so bad it hurts. And I whispered, then do it. To be continued in Part 5. We got caught. Part 5, we got caught. Some truths were never meant to be hidden. But when you live in a place like this, even breathing the wrong way can cost you everything. He didn't kiss me that night. He didn't climb down. Didn't whisper anything else. But I knew the line had already been crossed. What happened next wasn't if, it was when. The next morning felt colder, sharper, like the air itself knew something had shifted. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting eyes, waiting for the hammer to drop. Micah didn't meet my eyes at breakfast, but he sat closer, just one bench away. That was enough. For now. After chapel, the storm came. We were pulled, one by one. First me, then Micah. 2 counselors brought us into the same office. Caleb sat at his desk, his Bible closed this time, hands folded neatly. He didn't smile. You both know why you're here. My throat went dry. Micah didn't speak. We received confirmation, Caleb continued, that the 2 of you were involved in inappropriate physical contact after curfew. I said nothing. I couldn't. Caleb leaned forward. You're here to be reborn, Elijah, not dragged deeper into confusion. Micah tensed beside me. I could feel it, even from 2 feet away. You think what we felt was confusion? He said quietly. Caleb turned to him. Cold, sharp. I think what you felt was temptation, weakness. Micah stood up. Too fast, too loud. His chair scraped hard against the floor. You don't know anything about us. Caleb's face didn't change. Sit down, Micah. No. I stood too, not because I was brave, but because I couldn't let him stand alone. We didn't hurt anyone, I said. My voice was shaking, but I said it. We weren't violent. We weren't cruel. You just gave in to sin. I flinched. That word again, like a weapon, like a label they want to tattoo across our skin. You can leave, Caleb said, voice low now. But if you do, we'll contact your parents, both of you, and they'll know everything. I froze. So did Micah. That was the threat. Not just punishment, but exposure to the people who sent us here in the first place. I looked at Micah. His jaw was tight, his fist clenched. He was holding it all back, and I knew if he exploded, they'd have all the reason they needed. So I spoke first. Give us the punishment. Don't call them. Micah turned to me, shocked. Elijah? But I couldn't risk it. Not yet. Not like that. Caleb stood, walked around the desk slowly, then nodded. You'll both be put on separation protocol. What does that mean? I asked. You'll stay in different cabins. No contact. No group sessions together. No unsupervised time. Micah swore under his breath. Caleb smiled just slightly. Maybe distance will help you think clearer. I wanted to scream, because distance was the last thing we needed. But I bit my tongue and nodded. Fine. They led Mike out first. Didn't even let us say goodbye. And just like that, he was gone. They moved me to cabin 9, farther from the main circle. Colder, smaller. I didn't know anyone there. Didn't care to. I barely slept that night. Every creak outside made me think they were moving him again. Every flash of light made me hope it was him sneaking in, but it never was. The next day, I looked for him everywhere, during meals, during hikes, during devotions. But they were careful. They kept us apart like fire and gasoline, like one spark would burn this whole place down. And maybe it would have. By day 4, I felt like I was unraveling. Everything felt heavier, like the weight of what almost happened wouldn't leave my shoulders. I sat on the back steps of my new cabin, hoodie pulled up, arms locked around my knees. I was about to go back inside when I heard it. A voice, whispering, "Elijah." My breath caught. I turned. There he was, Micah, in the shadows, backlit by the moon. I stood, heart pounding. "What are you doing?" I whispered. "If they catch you, I don't care." He walked closer. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't breathe without knowing if he were okay. I stared at him, everything in me screaming to hold him. "I'm not okay," I said. "I miss you, every second." He stepped closer. We were inches apart. "I keep replaying that night," he said. "Your voice, your hand, that kiss. I replay everything," I whispered, "because that's all I have left." He reached out, touched my face, just barely, and for the second time in that cursed camp, we kissed, slower this time, sadder, like we both knew it couldn't last. But in that moment, we didn't stop, because maybe the world had already punished us. Maybe this was all we had left, to be continued in part 6. I couldn't deny it anymore. Part 6. I couldn't deny it anymore. You can lie to other people. You can lie to counselors. You can even lie to God if you try hard enough. But you can't lie to yourself forever. I tried. God knows I tried. After Micah kissed me that night, I told myself it didn't count, that it was desperation, that it was loneliness. But the truth? It was love, and it was growing inside me like something too wild to control. He snuck back into the woods before anyone noticed, left me standing under that silver moon, heart racing, lips still tingling, and a single thought pounding in my head. This can't keep happening. But I didn't want it to stop. Not really. I wanted more, even if it destroyed me. The next morning, they made me lead the devotional. Some kind of punishment, I guess. Forced a sinner to speak. I stood in front of 30 boys. Some quiet, some angry, some just too numb to care. And I opened the little black Bible they gave us on day 1. I read a verse about forgiveness, but I couldn't focus. Not on the words, not on their faces. All I saw was him, sitting in the back row again, sneaked in from another cabin, arms crossed, eyes locked on me, like I was the only thing in the room that mattered. I stumbled through the rest of the reading, closed the book, sat down. They gave us journals to fill every night. Write what you're working on, they said. But that night, I didn't write about temptation or redemption or change. I wrote, "His hand in mine felt more like God than anything else in this camp." I closed the journal, shoved it under my mattress, and didn't sleep. I couldn't, because the next day was testimony circle, where they made you stand up and confess your progress. I didn't want to lie, but I didn't want to be sent home either, because home wasn't safe. Home was the place that sent me here, the same place that believed I could be fixed. Fixed like a broken sink, like a disease, like I wasn't human. So I rehearsed, all night, the perfect speech. I've been struggling, but I'm learning to let God take control. I want to be better. It sounded good, safe, forgettable. But when I stood up in a circle, and 30 eyes looked at me, and Micah sat just outside the chapel doorway, pretending to mop the floor, something inside me snapped, and I said something else entirely. I'm not confused. I began, and I'm not ashamed. The room went still. The counselor looked up from his clipboard. I took a breath. Let it burn. I'm tired pretending I'm sick. Tired of apologizing for something that isn't wrong. Murmurs. Shuffling feet. I know what you wanted to say. That I'm getting better. That I'm healing. But the truth is, the only time I don't feel broken is when I'm with him. Dead silence. The kind that chokes. Micah looked up, eyes wide. Then slowly, he smiled. And I swear, that smile gave me strength I didn't know I had. I stepped back, sat down, heart pounding. The counselor cleared his throat, nodded stiffly. Thank you for your honesty. Elijah, let's move on. Move on. As if everything hadn't just shifted. As if I hadn't just said it out loud. That night, they called me in. Again. This time, 2 senior staff. No Caleb. Just a woman with sharp eyes. And a man with a too gentle voice. They didn't yell. They didn't threaten. They just looked at me like I was already gone. Elijah, she said, we understand you're having trouble adjusting. That's okay. But what you shared today was concerning. I didn't answer. The man leaned forward. Have you ever thought that maybe these feelings are the enemy's way of distracting you from your true purpose? I laughed, quietly, bitterly. You mean love? I said, is that what we're calling the enemy now? They blinked, and I realized I wasn't scared anymore. Because love shouldn't make you feel like you're drowning. But this place did. Every single day. I stood. They didn't stop me. And as I left the room, the last thing I heard was her whisper, start packing. I didn't see Micah until the next morning. He caught me by the cafeteria, slipped behind a utility shed, pulled me into his chest like he couldn't breathe without it. You said it out loud, he whispered. I couldn't lie anymore. He kissed me. Quick, but it meant everything. You're leaving, he asked. I think so. I'll find a way, he said. I swear I'll find a way to see you again. I nodded, even though I didn't believe it. Not yet, but I wanted to. I held his hand for the last time and let go like it would kill me, because maybe it would. To be continued in part 7. Leaving wasn't freedom. It was a different kind of cage. Part 7. Leaving wasn't freedom. It was a different kind of cage. They told me leaving would set me free, that I'd be back in the real world, that I could start fresh. But freedom isn't always about walking out a door. Sometimes it's about what still follows you after. They called my parents, told them I was uncooperative, that I had relapsed, that I was no longer responding to treatment. And just like that, I was gone. No goodbye, no hug, no time. They drove me out of that camp like I was radioactive, something dangerous, something that might spread. I didn't cry. Not then. Not while the car bumped down the gravel road. Not while the trees disappeared behind us. But the second I got home, it hit me. Not relief. Not safety. Just silence. My room looked the same. Posters still on the wall. Bible verses still taped to my mirror. The same old bed. The same old closet. But everything inside me had shifted. And now the walls felt smaller. Tighter. Like I brought the camp home with me. My mom smiled too hard. My dad didn't speak. Dinner was quiet. They asked nothing, said nothing, like pretending worked better than honesty, like they thought ignoring it would somehow cure it. That night, I laid on my bed staring at the ceiling, clutching the edge of my old blanket. I didn't miss the camp. God, no. But I missed him. Micah, his voice, his laugh, his hand in mine. That first night, I wanted to text him, to find him, but we never exchanged numbers, never got that far. We existed in a world that never wanted us to, and now we were back in separate cages. 2 ghosts who touched for a second and vanished. Days passed. I didn't go outside much, didn't respond to my old friends, didn't unpack. My mom tried, asked if I wanted to talk, but she didn't mean really talk. She meant, say you're better, say you're sorry. I couldn't give her either, so I stayed quiet. One afternoon, a thick envelope showed up in the mail from the camp. Inside, a letter, a final assessment, and my journal, the one I'd been forced to keep. They sent it back, unopened, unmarked, like none of it mattered, like every word I wrote meant nothing. I flipped to the last page, and there it was, the line I remembered. His hand in mine felt more like God than anything else in this camp. I stared at it, read it over and over, and for the first time in days, I cried, not because I felt broken, but because I finally felt real. Weeks went by, still no Micah, no message, no sign. I searched for him, online, through forums, social media. Nothing. He didn't exist digitally, not under his real name. It was like they erased him, or he disappeared on purpose. Then one night, 3 weeks after I got back, I opened my inbox, and there it was. One message, no subject, no greeting, just hearts like ours don't stay caged forever. I sat up, read it again, and again. I didn't even realize I was smiling until tears hit my lips. I replied instantly, "Where are you?" 10 minutes passed. Nothing. 20. An hour. Then, not far, but still not safe. Can we talk? Really talk? I sent my number. No hesitation. And 2 minutes later, my phone lit up. Micah, calling. I picked up. Didn't even say hello. Just whispered, "Hey." His voice cracked. "Elijah." And suddenly, I could breathe again. We talked for hours. About everything. About nothing. He was living 2 towns over, with an aunt who didn't ask questions, trying to finish high school online, trying to survive. He missed me. I missed him more. And as we talked, everything that felt like it had been stolen from us came rushing back. The honesty, the heat, the rightness of it all. He paused once. "Elijah? Yeah. Do you still feel it?" I swallowed. "Every second." He sighed, relieved, sad, all at once. "Then let's stop pretending we're not real." And in that moment, I knew this wasn't over. This couldn't be over. Because freedom isn't just walking away from something. It's walking towards someone, no matter how many fences they try to build between you. To be continued in Part 8. Love was the only way out. Part 8. Love was the only way out. They wanted us to forget, to move on, to bury it like it never happened. But love, real love, doesn't die just because someone tells it to. After that call, everything changed. Not instantly, not loudly, but quietly, like spring thawing after a brutal winter. Micah and I talked every night, sometimes about nothing, sometimes about everything. We built our own world, one phone call at a time. And in that world, we weren't mistakes. We weren't sinners. We weren't broken. We were just us. I still hadn't told my parents. Not really. They knew something had shifted, but I kept it quiet, not out of shame, but survival. They sent me to that camp to change me, and instead, I came back more me than ever before. They wouldn't understand that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Micah and I made a plan to meet face to face. 1 month after I left camp, a Saturday, a coffee shop halfway between our towns. Neutral, safe, public. I got there early, sat at a corner table, fingers twitching, heart loud, eyes on the door. And then he walked in. Same boy, same eyes, but different, calmer, stronger, like he wasn't running anymore. Our eyes met. He smiled, and every wall I built in the weeks since camp came crashing down. He sat across from me, didn't say a word, just reached across the table and took my hand. Right there, in public, no fear. And I didn't flinch. We talked for 2 hours, laughed, cried, sat in silence. It wasn't awkward. It was sacred. And when we left, he walked me to my car, hands still linked. "I missed this," he said. "I missed you," I replied. He leaned in, not fast, not desperate, just sure, and kissed me, right there in the parking lot, in full daylight. No shadows to hide in, no walls to close us off. It wasn't forbidden anymore. It was ours. Weeks turned into months. We kept seeing each other, slowly, carefully, but never hiding again. He told his aunt. She cried and hugged him. I told my sister. She rolled her eyes and said, "Took you long enough." Little by little, we started to breathe again. One night, under a sky full of stars, Micah said, "If you could go back to before camp, before us, would you do it all over again?" I looked at him, at his messy curls, his tired smile, his too big hoodie, and I said, "Only if it still led me to you." He didn't answer, just pulled me close. And in that moment, I realized something. They can try to erase us. They can call it wrong. They can call it broken. But what Micah and I found wasn't sin. It wasn't shame. It wasn't a phase. It was love. Real, raw, untamed. And love, no matter what they say, was the only way out.